What are the best things about living in Nashville? If you have ever asked yourself this question, then you have found the right video. My name is Andrew Lindsay, and I have a goal of traveling the world and helping other travelers do the same. And I put out a video like this every single week, so be sure to hit that subscribe button and hit that notifications bell so that way you never miss a video. Now, normally I make travel related content, but people seem to be loving my Nashville related content. So I thought I'd make a video about what I like best about living here. And if you want to check out some of my other Nashville related content, then you can do so by clicking the button that I'm going to put somewhere here in this video where you can, see the other videos I've made. I've made some stuff like the best restaurants in Nashville, best things to do in Nashville, the don'ts of Nashville, and so forth. So definitely go check those out if you are interested in knowing more about Nashville. And for this video, I'm going to be going over what I personally think is the best parts about living in Nashville from my personal perspective. So let's jump right in. So the first awesome benefit about living in Nashville is we don't have any state income tax. So Tennessee as a whole is one of 9 other states that don't have any state income tax. So that is a really nice feature about living here. And there's really not much else to say about it. It's just really cool to not have any state income tax. Second thing I love about Nashville is that you can make a full-time living in the music industry here. Very few cities in this country or even the world give you a good opportunity to make a full-time living as a musician or working in the music industry. Whether you're a full-time performing musician, studio musician, artist, producer, mixing and mastering engineer, live sound engineer, whatever it is, there is plenty of full-time work to be had in Nashville. I'm a product of that myself, as I have been working in the music industry pretty much full-time for the last 6 years, and that just isn't possible in most cities. That's not to say that it's easy though, but if you put in the work and you put in the time and you make the right connections, then for certain jobs you may find yourself getting hired pretty quickly, such as a performing musician on Broadway or a live sound engineer, for example. However, I wouldn't expect to come here and just get a job in a studio. Many people think that they're going to come here, get a degree, graduate school, and then get hired at a studio. And I hate to break it to you, but that is absolutely not how it works. You see, there's thousands of people in this city that would love to work at a studio. And then there are schools that are spitting out interns every 4 months. And there's absolutely no reason for a studio to hire you unless you bring a lot to the table, because then they're gonna have to spend money paying you as opposed to, keeping that money for themselves when they could just, have free interns who will do, all the little work for them. So just don't expect that. And honestly, that was my plan when I first moved here, is I was just gonna go to school, get a degree, and go work at a studio. And honestly, over time, not only did I find out that that just doesn't happen, or it's very, 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 very rare, but I also found out it wasn't what I wanted to do. So just a heads up in case that was your plan. I would rather personally work for myself instead of work for a studio. Just saying. The next thing that I love about living in Nashville is it has a small town feel. So Nashville is pretty famous for its southern hospitality and its small town feel. However, if the city keeps growing, then we may very well quit feeling like a small town. At this point, we're starting to outgrow our infrastructure and the traffic shows it. And at this point, I might even say that we feel more like a big city trapped in a small town. But even with all the growth, we still don't feel anything like Chicago, Atlanta, New York, LA, nothing like that. As long as I go out when the traffic isn't that bad, then I can usually get from one side of the city to the other in 15 minutes or less. So, we still are a relatively small city compared to places like that. Now, real quick, if you're enjoying this video, I wanted to mention my free resource, the Ultimate Budget Travel Guide. I created this free resource for travelers so that way they would have access to a bunch of dream destinations as well as all the resources that they need all in one place so they can plan their entire trip on a budget, all from their fingertips. And on top of that, this is an ever-growing resource. So if you choose to pick it up, then I will be updating it. And whenever I make an update, I will send an email out letting you know that it's been updated so you can get the updated version. And if you want to pick this up, you can do so by clicking the link in the description of this video. Now on to my next favorite thing about living in Nashville. Another cool thing about living here, and it kind of goes hand in hand with the small town feel, is everybody knows everybody, especially if you're working in the music industry. And honestly, this probably holds true for any creative community in Nashville. Nashville just has a way of bringing creatives and driven people together and just connecting them in a way that's just a very positive experience, and it just feels like everybody's kind of uplifting each other, wanting to connect with each other and just make friends, and it just feels like a very healthy environment. Now, Obviously, there are some bad apples. There are some people out there that really suck, but honestly, in a city like this, their name gets around and they start to burn bridges pretty quickly, which is really cool in a place like this where, you can kind of, build a really good reputation for yourself, or you can destroy a reputation for yourself, which is, don't do that. But overall, Nashville having that, everybody knows everybody kind of feel is actually a pretty good thing, especially if you're a good person and you are a driven creative who wants to further your career. The next thing I love about Nashville is the affordable rent. So some people will say that this is a pro of Nashville and a con of Nashville. Depending on where you're coming from, Nashville is either really affordable or really expensive. For the people who are moving from California, they are saying that Nashville is exceptionally affordable, but for the people who are moving from small towns here, especially if you're moving by yourself, many people will say it's actually quite expensive. The thing is, here in Nashville, if you work together with a roommate or even get a couple of roommates, you guys can easily get something nice, especially like a house, at a very reasonable price and split it multiple ways and not be breaking the bank. And I don't think you can necessarily say that as easily about places like LA or other places in California or New York City, for example. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I've heard, right? So as far as Nashville is concerned, just don't expect to really get anything that's that nice for under $1,000 in most places in Nashville, but for around $1,000 to $1,500, you can usually get something pretty decent. And again, if you work with somebody, have a roommate or something like that, then you can definitely get something that's pretty nice here in Nashville. Another thing I love about Nashville is it's pretty safe. All things considered, Nashville is a pretty safe city, especially compared to some places out there like Memphis, for example. I mean, don't get me wrong, Nashville has crime, as I'm sure some people have heard. Some things do happen here. I mean, it's a big city, you obviously can't avoid that. But overall, if you're walking around most of Nashville, I feel like most of the city portion actually feels quite safe. Now, there are some sketchy things that happen down on Lower Broadway. I'm not gonna say Lower Broadway is per se dangerous, but I am gonna say, some stuff happens down there sometimes. But overall, I would just say that Nashville is a pretty safe city, and walking around most areas of the city, I've always felt really safe. It has a very good vibe. It always feels really good here. And I think that's why a lot of people like to move here, is they come here and the vibe is just really nice. It just has something about it. It just feels very homey, very comfortable, very peaceful. And I don't think you can say that about a lot of other major cities that are growing. In fact, I've heard a lot of, bad things about, some other cities. I don't want to pick on anybody's city, right? But, Nashville overall is a pretty safe city in my personal opinion, but you do, still got to be conscious of, walking into bad neighborhoods and, putting yourself in bad positions. Just be smart, use common sense, and overall, you'll probably be safe in Nashville. Another one of my favorite things about living in Nashville is that my favorite church that I have ever been to is here. Well, technically it's in Mount Juliet, but it's close to Nashville. At this church I have been blessed enough to see a lot of miracles of Christ and see people get healed and see people get delivered. And that church is called Global Vision Bible Church. And this church has absolutely changed my life. And if there was any reason that I would consider living here for the rest of my life, or any reason I may not want to ever leave, then this church would definitely be it. That's how much I love this church. And it's definitely one of my favorite parts about living here in this city. If you ever find yourself in the Nashville area and you want to have a good church service, come pay us a visit at Global Vision in Mount Juliet. Another thing that I love about Nashville is there are lots of waterfalls and hiking around here. So there are at least 12 named waterfalls in this area, and I have been to quite a few of them. In fact, back in 2020, when none of us were working, me and a group of friends decided we would try to go to as many of these waterfalls as we could. And I don't remember exactly how many we got to. I think it was like 6. And it was just a really fun experience. And on top of that, there's a bunch of other little hiking trails and bodies of water and things like that to see around here. So if you love to hike and you love nature and you love waterfalls, then there's definitely a lot of different places that you can see around Nashville. Not necessarily in Nashville. Sometimes you got to drive like an hour away or whatever to get to some of these waterfalls, but near Nashville. So if you enjoy that, then this is definitely a great place to be. Another one of the coolest things about living in Nashville, and probably kind of obvious, is that we have lots of shows. So if you love live music, then there is really no better place to be. Pretty much every major act passes through Nashville, and pretty much every day of the week there is live music being performed somewhere in this city. If you can't get enough live music, then this is definitely the place that you are going to want to be. And because I work in the music industry, I have made a lot of my friends and a lot of big connections working in the music industry, which has just been a really cool time. And I've really enjoyed being around, all the live music, all the talent, all the musicians. I mean, it's just a huge blessing and is easily one of my favorite parts about being in this city. Another cool thing about Nashville is that it is very well centrally located. So if you live in Nashville and you ever, get bored and want to take a little road trip and go somewhere else, there are a lot of major cities within 5 to 10 hours of Nashville. So let me just think of a few. Within 5 hours, we've got Atlanta, Memphis, Knoxville, Cincinnati, Indianapolis, Little Rock. I think St. Louis is within 5 hours. I think Columbus, Ohio might be a little bit more than 5 hours. And then within 10 hours, we've got like Dallas, you've got Orlando, you've got, I think you got Charlotte, South Carolina. I mean, you've got so many different options within 10 hours of Nashville if you want to take a 5 to 10 hour road trip and go explore another city. And I think that's one of the coolest things, especially if you're considering moving to Nashville to be a touring musician, because it is very easy to get a tour where you can hit a bunch of different cities within a 10-hour time frame coming out of Nashville, which is really cool. So, just be aware of that. If you want to be close to a lot of other major cities within a 5 to 10 hour time frame, then Nashville is in a very good spot. Another really cool thing about Nashville is the tourism. So some people will say this is a pro, some people will say this is a con, but for the sake of this video, I'm going to lean more towards the pro side of things, right? So, with the tourism, that means that there's a bunch of activities and touristy stuff to do here, but that also means that there's a really cool nightlife on the weekends if that's your thing. If you like the clubs, if you like going out, then you definitely have that here. And of course, there's a lot of big events that pass through Nashville, which is really cool. Me personally, I'm not into the drinking, the clubs, or, going out to bars or anything like that. So for me, it's not really a big perk, but for those of you that are into that, it's definitely a huge perk of living in Nashville. And lastly, another one of the major perks of living in Nashville that I will mention is the sports. So for me personally, I am not really into sports, but for those of you that love football, love hockey, then you have got the Nashville Predators and the Nashville Titans, and we have some pretty epic sporting events that happen here when those teams play. And obviously downtown gets pretty crazy during that time. But if you love sports, then Nashville will definitely be a city that you enjoy. So those are my favorite things about living in Nashville. Now real quick, before this video comes to an end, I wanted to mention one more time my free resource, the Ultimate Budget Travel Guide. I created this free resource so that way you would have access to a bunch of dream destinations, as well as all the resources that you needed to book those dream destinations on a budget, all in one resource, all at your fingertips. And if you want to pick that up, you can do so by clicking the link in the description of this video. Now, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that like button and leave me a comment letting me know what you like best about the video, and be sure to share it with someone who can gain some value from it. And I will see you guys next week. Peace.